never heard of. Hey everybody, welcome to the Common Folk Podcast with Ben, Morgan, and Andy.
Eric Burgett again on the intro, man.
Sounding good. It really does sound like he wrote that for us, doesn't it?
I think he did.
Did he really? Yeah, we'll just take that.
Yeah, we're just going to say he did.
Thanks, Eric.
Should we say was our idea too?
Yeah.
Like the words?
Mm-hmm. We helped with the lyrics.
Yeah.
We at least inspired them to a certain extent.
Well, yeah, I mean, common folk across America inspired that, for sure.
We're just trying to get credit for something we haven't done.
Because it was all him and his cohorts that like they wrote the music together. But
yes,
yeah, they came up with the lyrics, the song, the melody. They did all that, but we cut it up and turned it into an intro. You know, and now everyone's heard it.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Eric Burgett, Burgett.
Double T's.
Go out on the socials and find him. He's releasing a ton of music lately.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
He's got some pretty cool songs. Yeah. Farm Kid. Yeah, man. From Illinois.
Yeah, pretty close. Have you ever been? You haven't been to his farm?
Have not. Nope.
Okay.
No, but he's pretty active on IG, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's got a lot
That's where I see him the most.
Very active.
But I'm not super big on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's on there. I don't know, Facebook.
Probably.
Yeah, I bet he's on everything. Probably TikTok,
I think I've seen him the most on IG, which I've kind of taken a little bit of a break from Instagram, and I'm more on Twitter now, which it's football season, and sports people, they have to be on Twitter.
Oh.
That's like a thing.
Oh, really?
Why?
It is a weird subculture.
What are we missing out on?
You're missing out on scores as soon as they happen, then everyone's opinion on what happened during the game. Yeah.
And that's exciting?
It
gives if you want to stay in the know.
Yeah, if you want to stay in the know.
Why can't you just watch the game?
Oh God, I wish we could just watch the game.
There's too many games, right? So like on Twitter, you could be dialed into all of the ones at the same time.
But so like on Twitter, you have let's say your 10 people that you follow the most. So that's what gets fed to you the most.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, so that you know that they're watching Monday Night Football as well. And when anything happens, a bad call, a guy makes a terrific catch, or he drops a pass he should have caught, everybody has a take on it, and 2 or 3 of them are just funnier than hell, right? You know, they get the perfect meme, you know, so it's this addictive thing. It's almost like a drug. I guess you could consider a drug because it's feeding on your dopamines and all that type of stuff.
So you're literally watching the game, have your phone out, and just flicking through it, but then you're not talking to people.
You kind of are, because then you're gonna retweet it or comment on the tweet, like you have a funny one-liner that you want to get in there, and
But you're not talking to the people next to you.
Well, you're talking to all the people.
Well, you can do that too. They're looking at the same tweet.
Oh my gosh, boys can multitask?
You're talking to
Is
all
that a thing?
people on the socials.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking, don't we talk to our children about let's have live conversations, get off your phones?
Yeah, but this is different. This is Monday Night Football.
Okay. But isn't it Monday now, Wednesday on Amazon, Thursday isn't it almost every day?
The NFL is a monster, and it is trying to take over the world.
I think it is.
So, yes, it's Thursday Night Football. Now they got a couple Friday night games.
Yeah, Sunday for sure, Monday.
All day Sunday. You know, kickoff at 11 a.m. Then you got your Sunday afternoon, Sunday night. Yeah.
So that sucks for the girls and guys that just don't like it.
Yeah,
period.
They're just.
I like it on. There's not a massive team that we're like, rah.
Aren't you guys Titans fans?
Yeah.
Joel is, right?
Our
Joel
kid is, yeah. But I mean, we just kind of go
with the flow. We're going to a game too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Fun.
I know.
Chiefs?
They're coming to KC.
Yeah.
For his birthday.
Yeah.
Yep. So he's pretty pumped. So yeah.
That's very cool. So he's got to be a big Bussin' with the Boys fan, right?
What is that?
Oh, okay. So
we're special over here.
It's an extremely popular new podcast, and one of the co-hosts is a former linebacker of the University of Nebraska.
Oh.
And one of his last gigs, he was a linebacker for the Tennessee Titans.
Oh, okay.
And now he co-hosts, and it's based out of Nashville. and his co-host is a current member of the Titans, Taylor Lewan, who played for Michigan and now is a left tackle, big dude, mountain of a dude. But it's funny that dude. They're very good together.
Really?
You know what I mean?
Huh.
And it's just hilarious. And Will Compton is the linebacker's name.
Okay.
But he is a Husker through and through, and he's got funny tweets throughout. Like, so if you follow him on Twitter, like he probably had 10 or 12 tweets during the Monday Night Football game.
Oh, really?
And 5 or 6 of them were pretty funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he wore his Derrick Henry jersey today.
Yeah.
But
I guess we'll have to follow that. I don't know.
Yeah. You'd like it.
I know.
Bussing with the boys.
You're the sports guru.
Yeah.
Ben, you enjoy sports, but it's not like a.
I mean, I love playing sports, but I'm not a big I'm not big into following all of it.
Yeah.
I feel like I have too many things going on already.
Well, I don't get crazy about it. I like the Chicago Bears, but it doesn't ruin my Sunday if they lose.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the Huskers used to be that way, but they've just conditioned their fan base so much so that losing's acceptable.
It's like what's happening.
It's we're just going to come out and try to play, but we're probably going to lose today.
It's apathy, man. It's pathetic.
It feels like, though, the first 10 or 15 minutes of every game, we're like, oh, shit, here we go. Oh, man, we're on it today. And then it's like, the rest of the game. Yeah. Dang it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're just better off not being as invested as me and some of the hardcore Husker fans out there.
Well, you got some good topic today, right, Andy?
Yes, we do. This kind of came across my desk, I guess, and kind of caught my eye, and I thought, this might be something we want to dive into on the old Common Folk podcast, and that is that the United States government now wants to have individuals register their personal gardens.
Holy sakes.
I feel like the more and more that we do, we're, as with the stuff we talk about, we run into these things every single day, something comes out and it's like, what in the heck are they talking about? From a common folk perspective, it's like, this doesn't even make any dang sense. Yeah. We're just out here trying to do our thing and survive and whatever. Yeah. To me, the topic is about, in general, personal liberties as far as, what you can and can't do, what you're allowed to do and not do, which, for your typical American, the idea of saying you're allowed to do this or not allowed to do that, that don't play well.
No.
That goes against everything that was kind of written down on that piece of paper in 1776, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
all that's been kind of building up, and then it's like, okay, well, yeah, you can do this, but we're going to need you to tell us about it. Mm-hmm. And that was something that you brought up to us the other day, because you said you had seen this, and of course, where we come from. I mean, my family, one of the biggest things that my grandfather did every single year was grow a garden.
Mm-hmm. So good.
And I spent so much time working in that thing, to my dismay. When I was a kid, it was like, you got to go out and water that thing, and it'd take 2 hours to water it.
Sure.
Yep,
water it
you got to
properly.
go out there, pull the weeds out, do this, do that, help Grandpa put the tomatoes in the ground, all these kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And at the time, it was like, this sucks, whatever. But then when you get older, you realize that was freaking awesome.
A lot of good things.
And now I want to do it. So my family, we spent a ton of time doing this. And I've always had, in one way or another, Morgan can attest to it, some small spin-off of that.
Yeah. Yep.
We've always wanted to do it. We've always had fun with it.
Yeah.
Would never have been something that we could rely on for the whole season. You still got to go to the grocery store.
I was going to ask, was your grandpa's garden so big that they would do canning? Because there's a lot of people up in Lynch where that was a couple of days set aside, in the fall where we got to do canning now, and they'd fill up the cellar full of canned tomatoes, asparagus, all that good stuff.
Grandma canned a ton.
Wow. Yeah, they canned everything they picked. They canned, and it would be the garden would be it'd be massive. Mm-hmm. So all that was getting pulled, but that was the generation that they came from. Mm-hmm. That all needed to be prepared and ready, and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of folks that have been doing those kinds of things. If we go back to there was an episode that we put out not too long ago that was a replay from that family in Iowa that got flooded out.
Mm-hmm.
And their house that got flooded, in the basement, the lady there had a full-on canning operation.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about
Yeah.
everything, man. Like, she had a stove for it. She had all the cellar area, all the kinds of things. And this is what a lot of people do and always have.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's something that Ashley's always been wanting to get into. And it reminded me of the stove. It has that burner that goes down, you know. A friend of ours had an antique stove in their basement that when they bought their house in Midtown Omaha, it was just part of the house, right? It's this big, heavy thing. Good luck getting it out. And they didn't want to throw it away, but they're doing some remodeling. Well, out in our cabin, we had and you've been there, we had like a piece of garbage from the 80s was our stove.
Yeah.
And it was kind of on the fritz. So they said, hey, would you want this? Would you have any? And we're like, man, that would fit perfectly in the cabin. And that's what's out there now. And it works great.
Really?
You know, it's a big old huge monstrosity, but it has that canning burner that drops down.
I didn't even think.
It's pretty cool.
I didn't know that they had that. I didn't know that was a thing. I don't think I've seen that.
Such a common thing.
Yeah, part of
the
way it was.
so long. And like anything else, you know, the stuff that we talk about, all of these changes kind of come out of convenience. So
inconvenience.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like it became a thing where it was just so much easier to go to the grocery store.
Buy a can.
The stuff was always there, and it's
ready.
79 cents or whatever, you know, as opposed to doing all of it yourself. But it's kind of like some of that's coming back around, and I feel like that's why, you know, what you stumbled across, where like, oh, now they want to know that you're doing it.
Well, I got some things that I think feed into that, but where I was coming from as far as the inconvenience, and this is how it's gone full circle. Back in the mid-1940s, our government was saying, hey, plant your own garden. Like, all of our resources are going into World War II. Take care of yourself, help your country out right now. And now it's gone full circle to where our government's saying, you're growing stuff for yourself? Why are you doing that? Tell us about that. What do you got going on there?
Right.
You know, like, it's a complete 180 of the way it used to be. And we joke about this. It's a bad joke, but, the good things that came from COVID.
Yeah.
Right? Well, one of the things that kind of fell out from that, a lot of people took up gardening. And a few things went into that. At first, it was just kind of like a hobby for something to get outside, do something. People enjoyed it. People liked it. Yeah. It helped with stress and mental health and all those things, you know, kind of the byproduct of gardening. But also, throughout 2020, food scarcity was a real thing. I mean, remember when toilet paper was even, you know, hard to come by? And I thought this was pretty cool. 55% of American households engage in gardening activities now. That is way up. COVID pandemic created, and I'm getting this from a gardening statistics webpage here, 18.3 million new gardeners since 2020. Yeah.
Wow.
And the people that did garden, 42% of them garden even more. So like you're seeing kind of a twofold thing. The people that were already gardening are gardening way more than they were, and you also have a whole new influx. Let's see here, and 29% of these new gardeners are millennials. So that's pretty cool too when you think about that.
Yeah. So those numbers had to have come in, and the government was like, "Oh, we got to crack down. We got to monitor this." Like, where does this?
Well,
you know,
I think the first indicator or something that like a government would care about is the gardening retail sales. They increased from in 2018, gardening retail products went from a 4.6 increase in revenue all the way up to an 8.8, doubled in 2020, and that was just right away.
That's just gardening related.
Yeah, like
products.
Garden hoses, little handheld tools, tomato seeds, things of that nature. So when you see a double in sales like that, okay, now I need to get my hand in it.
So now they're monitoring. Yeah.
And I mean, I also, I have some theories, that can kind of take us down a path as to, why they're so interested and why they want to know this information. But I kind of wanted to go to the website itself and read it to you. It's called the the People's Garden Initiative. And it's a really nice little website. And it says, join the People's Garden Initiative today by completing this registration form. Your garden will be posted on a map on USDA's website, and we'll send you a People's Garden sign to display.
Oh, so you're like part of a group, and you feel so special, like a pat on your back.
And that's like if you think about that, like, so take a sign as an example, like where we're sitting right now. Mm-hmm. You know where our garden is? It's right behind you. Mm-hmm. It's out there in the dirt. So we register get a sign, and we're gonna stick it right there.
Yeah,
like no one is ever going to see that. How dumb is that? So are they targeting? Like folks, it's like suburban folks.
Yeah, this is a big urban, and the name of the website is even urban agriculture at USDA.gov. Yep. Okay, so that's one of the websites you're supposed to go to give them all your criteria.
So then you also have this whole like debate with people who live in neighborhoods, and they're changing their grass to gardens. Mm-hmm. And, like, if they do it in their backyard, the neighborhood's like, okay, that's fine. Nobody can see it. If they do it in their front yard, they start getting fines and stuff because it's like it's like an eyesore.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Like a dead truck or something.
Right. And I'm for it. I mean,
it's not an eyesore to me.
No. You know? And people have to, like, they're all required to upkeep their yard. They're required to mow it. They're required to keep the weeds down, so on and so forth.
Yep.
So if you're required to upkeep your garden as well, I mean, come on, like no big deal.
If you don't have a bunch of corn and like massive weeds overtaking it,
so,
it just
as
looks
long
like
as it's not weedy, and all that. But I think that's a whole lot better use of the land. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. But what traditional grasses are doing to, like the environment and these neighborhoods and how they're getting overplowed with fertilizers and on and on and on and all this kind of stuff. I mean, that's a whole different thing, but why not? Like, let people have the dang gardens.
Yeah, well, why is that so bad of a thing? And, I started researching this, and it sends you down a rabbit hole. So, like, bouncing around all these different journals and websites and listening to different interviews from different folks. So I have a few outtakes that I want to play for us.
Yeah, let's hear it.
And then we can kind of have put our own thoughts on that as well. But one like little tidbit that was thrown out there, and it's not an argument, and I'm not trying to stir the pot. I'm just stating a fact. But one of the biggest tools for a fascist or a communist dictator was to cause famine, to cause a food shortage, to control its people, whether it was Mao in China or Stalin in the Soviet Union. Like, I'm not being controversial. I'm just telling you that's what it is.
Yep.
And we were already seeing food shortages in the United States, and now our government's just sliding in saying, "Hey, you're trying to support yourself. You're trying to grow your own garden. You better log that in with us. We'll give you a sign, and we'll put it on our website map." Hey, isn't that nice?
Yeah.
So anyway, these little cuts came from a very popular show and podcast called Timcast IRL. It's Tim Pool. He's been after it for a while now. He's gotten to be a really big influencer on YouTube, and his podcast is tremendously big. He's a regular guest on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he gets pretty big guests himself.
Sweet.
And one of his regulars now, or a guy that you see on his show quite often or hear from, is Luke Rudkowski. And he's been after it for a while, too. He founded We Are Change, and that's an independent media organization that promotes right-wing and libertarian values. So already, that he's going to have critics.
Just from that.
Yeah. So I mean, and when I played these clips, I want to make it clear that I don't agree with everything he says, and I don't think everyone should agree on everything. That's but what he says, he believes, and he's informed, and he's done a lot more research than I. So this particular podcast that they were doing, when I grabbed these little snippets, it was talking about how modern day food, like from your grocery store, is become more and more detrimental to men's health. That's where this conversation started. And then it went down this path, kind of like we're going down this path with, why does the government need to know that?
Yeah.
So I'll just what the heck? Why not start playing some? Here we go.
Well, there's a huge decline in sperm, in reproductive rates, in IQ, in people's health. There's a huge increase of people being fat. There's a huge increase of people not being healthy. There's a huge increase of respiratory diseases and heart ailments that have been dramatically increasing all over the world. And, it's fair to say that there has been something happening that has utterly devastated and destroyed the modern man. There's a lot of things chemically happening right now. A lot of people are blaming plastics for it, as plastics have been found in people's bloodstreams. There's a chemical warfare happening right now that is affecting not just the human body, but the human mind. And I think this is why a lot of people have been going crazy. This is why I think there's more homelessness. There's a bigger homelessness problem out there than there was before, which is usually linked to a mental health crisis. I think right now we are going through some kind of medical intervention that is not natural, that is destroying human life on this planet.
Wow. Yeah. So once again, that's Luke Rudkowski, and he's a big voice when it comes to conspiracy theories. He kind of became famous by getting in the face of politicians and asking them tough questions, and then when they would tell him to get bent or start walking away, he would press the issue. That's kind of how he got his name and his notes, and He's a brilliant dude as well. He's made some pretty good documentaries that, you can't watch him and just disagree with everything. You got to give the dude a little bit of credit here and there. And what he's talking about, it dovetails into other things that we've already talked about. Like how some foods just aren't as nutritious as maybe they once were. Mm-hmm. And why is that? Mm-hmm. What's going on here? So it's not like so many things, they're intertwined. It's not just this or that. Right. And for whatever reason, the centerpiece of it all, there always seems to be some big government influence on it. Mm-hmm. And he's going to dive into it a little bit more here. But once again, this is Luke Rudkowski, not Andy Klassen, saying all this.
I think there's two motives here. One is profit and incentive, and I think the other one is deliberate, and I think both are playing a part here. I think there's a few people that are saying too many people in this world, we have to intervene. We have to incentivize the use of GMOs. We have to incentivize the use of glyphosate. We have to incentivize the use of high-fructose corn syrup. Yeah.
Real quick, there are people like Bill Gates who have publicly stated there are too many people.
And that's Tim Pool interjecting right there,
the
main host.
Okay.
And we have to take action.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Now, beyond that,
there's corporations that are incentivized to do this because then big industries like corn, high fructose corn syrup, and glyphosate are subsidized and, of course, given to these corporations for very cheap. They, of course, give it out to the general public, and whether it's seed oils, high sugar, or just the chemicals that are banned in so many other countries, we give it to our children. The diet that our children are given is absolutely horrendous. It's leading to brain defects, and it's leading towards a destroyed civilization that, of course, won't be able to get up from its feet because it's being bombarded with poisons.
So, he gets pretty deep pretty quick there.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of things there that we especially have to be careful of because right off the bat, he's attacking corn farmers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can't argue with the fact that they are heavily subsidized. And I've talked to farmers that, have told me with the big old, shit-eating grin, well, the best thing that could happen to me is a hailstorm early on, so then I won't have to cultivate a crop, but I'll still get paid for it, and if it does grow, I'll get to sell the seed from it. Mm-hmm. So he'll get to profit 2 or 3 times off of it if he doesn't grow a crop.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of I think it's like anything else. There's a lot of misnomers there, a lot of things that people don't fully understand. If we had some of the folks that we know very well who are heavily involved in farming, give them a chance to kind of give some rebuttal to that.
Yeah.
There definitely would be another perspective.
Sure.
But, from what I know in dealing with guys, and we don't row crop farm ourselves, but we deal with a lot of row crop farmers, there's no doubt that if your crop gets damaged, gets hailed out, so on and so forth, you will absolutely make less money than if it went full term and you were able to harvest it and do your thing. There's no doubt about that.
And I buy that. Yeah.
The questions at that point would be all of the costs. So like fuel's ridiculous. The input costs are ridiculous. All these kinds of things. Like if that keeps climbing, that will definitely change things. But I honestly don't know a farmer who would rather have their crop hailed out than see it full through.
And just morally speaking, I think 99% of all farmers out there, row crop or otherwise, they want to be honest and grow a crop and sell it.
I think that for the most part, yes. Absolutely.
But there's also, now we have a governmental influence subsidizing something, and when that happens, it skews things. It skews your motives, it skews what you can make, it skews what you plant in the first place.
Yep.
There's a lot of farmers out there that wouldn't have even bothered to put in this type of hybrid of corn had it not been for a subsidy. And that's where I'm coming from. I don't want to attack farmers, right? I mean, that's where I grew up. That's my people. But we also have to understand, or at least acknowledge, that some things get off kilter when a government program gets entered into the mix.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair to say.
I agree. Yep. Those influencing factors, there's a lot of money moving in and out one way or another, no doubt. And he mentioned when he was talking on that, one of the things he talked about was GMOs. And and that's a whole nother conversation, but it's a genetically modified organism.
Yeah.
It's something that there's so many sides to it, but it's something that's been built in order to produce massive production.
Right. And it's almost out of necessity, right?
Right. Yeah.
I'm not scared of GMOs as what maybe some people are. What I thought you were going to pick up on our catch there was the glyphosate.
That was another, for sure.
He threw that in there.
Yep.
And just other journals, other things that I've listened to really do show that when glyphosate was introduced, that's when problems like anxiety, ADHD, all these mental health, shortcomings, if you will, they also rose, and they've been rising ever since the introduction of mass glyphosate across the nation.
So glyphosate is a weed killer that, so people understand, and a lot of people listening to this probably will understand, but a lot of them won't.
Right.
The GMO crop, so let's just take a corn crop as an example, has been genetically engineered to be able to withstand a treatment of glyphosate. So what that means is that the farmer can go out there and spray that glyphosate, and everything around that corn is going to die. But the corn's not going to, because it's been genetically engineered to be able to withstand that treatment.
Yep.
Yes. So, and there's a lot of studies. I don't know which ones are true, which ones aren't.
Right. There's a lot out there.
Yeah, where they say like, okay, if you spray it at this time and you give it X amount of time before harvest, then it's all gone. Like it's not going to make its way into the food supply and so on and so forth. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm not a scientist.
Yep.
But I do know that there are regulations on that, and I don't know who sets those regulations. And most of the folks that I know,
and who follows them? Someone's going to have to follow them.
Well, yeah,
right?
And they are legally required to follow these guidelines.
Yeah.
But sometimes when it comes down to it, like stuff has to be done when it has to be done.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But the fact is that without being able to do that, a farmer couldn't raise the corn crop today that they're raising as far as like the results.
You're 100% right.
And so we as a society have to figure out what are we okay with, because we need all of that. We need all that food and that fiber and that fuel. We need all of that.
Yep.
So, and this is the way we're getting it today. So how, if you don't like it, like what's the next move?
So and the big study that caught my eye that I ended up diving into was the rates of babies born with Down syndrome just has been just on a gradual increase, and that increase began when glyphosate started to hit the mass market.
Really?
And they once again, I'm not saying it's glyphosate, but you can just go ahead and look at a graph and look at how much was applied then and to today, and they mirror one another. Okay. That's all. And once again, it's undeniable. It's just out there. It's just information that's out there.
Yeah.
So I got one more clip here from Luke, and Ben dives into your why, why he thinks or what he thinks is going on. And once again, it's not me.
Yeah.
It's Luke.
And it's crazy when you realize most of the big fast food chains, except for Papa John's, it's weird chemicals you're eating. You can't produce. You can't pronounce. Yet you don't care that you're eating it. That to me is just weird.
Yeah, and your body can't break it down, so your body is in a constant state of inflammation that it can't deal with. And when it's inflamed, it has a hard time processing and working well. And if your gut's not working well, your brain is not working well, since your brain is dependent on the chemicals produced in your gut. And I think a lot of this is deliberate, because if you could destroy someone's health, if you could destroy someone's sanity and mental clarity, you could more easily enslave them. Because if you have them in a pathetic fat state, you have them in a state where they don't respect themselves. And if you don't respect yourself, you're not going to stand up for yourself, and therefore you're a lot easier to squash, you're a lot easier to control, you're a lot easier to manipulate. And I think there's a big agenda happening, and this is my own personal opinion, that this is all engineered and planted and created in a way specifically to hurt us in the worst possible way.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, we're going from why does the government want to know if we're growing a garden to make our own food to here's why he thinks, he's going to the straight up end of end all.
Extreme, for sure.
A globalist type of federation that wants to control everything. And it all adds up when you start diving into it. Think of all the shitty foods at the grocery store that are cheap, that come from subsidies. Once again, I'm not attacking corn farmers, but a lot of that stuff is made with high fructose syrup.
Yeah.
Okay. And if I'm growing a garden, it's just going to be raw goods, carrots, tomatoes.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
And that type of stuff is really healthy for you.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of hard to argue with. Again, this theme keeps coming back in almost everything that I interact with in my life. And we've talked about this with a number of things on the podcast, and it's convenience. It is very inconvenient to grow your own garden.
Although I have to say, it's really not that hard.
It's not that hard, but the thing is that it's
time
work
consuming. Yeah,
you've got to go in there, you've got to till the ground, you've got to get the soil right, which isn't too big of a deal. You got to get those seeds in there. You have to care for it. You have to make sure it's got water. You have to, the weeds are inevitably going to pop up. You've got to pull the weeds. You've got to take care of all these things. You got to maintain it. And you take a tomato plant. Like the tomato plant needs pruning. You've got to go out there and you've got to pick some of these extra growths and all the things that come along with this. The point is that it's an effort. It's very, very convenient to say, I don't need to do all that. Like the grocery store is always fully stocked.
Yeah, they have tomatoes. I'll go get those.
It's very convenient. It's very convenient until it's not convenient anymore.
Right.
But the point is that it's just so much easier for folks. So that convenience enters in the picture. And then these kinds of things are allowed to happen,
Yeah.
And then also, you just take society in general. I mean, it would be extremely hard to go to any of these major metropolitan areas and have any of those folks on some kind of scale amongst themselves take care of their own food needs. Like that would be almost impossible.
Right.
You get out here to the country, in the rural area.
You could do it.
Yeah.
We can do it. Like we can raise cattle, we can have our garden, we can have all these things. But you get into these major metropolises, and that's just not really an option.
But this is one of those encouraging things from those stats I was reading to start off with. 35% of U.S. households grow vegetables, fruits, and other food. And a lot of them are within their apartment, out on their balcony, something like that. So to your point, it's not a full-on sustainable thing, but, throughout a a summer, they're picking fruits off of that every so often. Yeah. And I think it's pretty cool that it's not easy, yet 55% of Americans are now partaking in it. That's the populace turning around saying, you know what? I'm not going to rely on the government taking care of me or supplying me with my food. I'm going to do something about it.
Take some ownership. Yeah. Like we talked about in the beginning, like the canning thing. If you've gardened enough, and there's plenty of people that have listened to this that know 100%, they're probably yelling at the radio right now, like you're going to harvest whatever that particular vegetable is that you're growing or fruit or whatever in this little window. And you have to make that last.
Right.
So for that little window, I mean, I got tomatoes every night. No sweat. But here comes October, November.
Yep.
We don't have any tomatoes left.
Yeah.
So now what are we doing? You know what I mean? But if you've done all of that whole process of harvesting them, prepping them, canning them, all these kinds of things, now you've got it taken care of. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I can remember as a kid growing up, there was always one day in the fall where we would go out to a local farmer that would plant sweet corn. And, they'd do like a half a bag, so more than enough for their family and all their friends and stuff. So after, you'd always get your shot to go out there and pick corn, right? And so we'd go pick a bunch of corn, and then Mom and Dad would have their electric knives and be sawing down the sides. And then we'd be filling up Ziploc bags and throwing those in the freezer. That was just part of one day of the fall for us every year.
There you
go.
Yeah.
But that's how once again, gardening.
And then
definitely what your grandma did. I mean, I have very clear memories, and she has now passed, of us, just her basement loaded. She always had 2 freezers. Yeah. She would have us literally come grocery shop her basement of canned goods, frozen corn, meat from a cow. Like, what? Who does that? How amazing was that when we were young?
And she came from that generation, that 1945, where it was like, no, plant your own garden, take care of yourself. You don't know,
And we just recently did that with corn. We had a bunch of sweet corn.
We froze a ton of it.
And it's freaking amazing.
Oh, yeah, it's sweeter, tastes better.
And you just did a thing of tomato sauce for spaghetti.
Made
and
sauces,
shit,
canned
Annie, that was...
Yeah, legit.
It's good stuff, man.
I mean, it took a little bit of time, right? I mean, obviously,
that's the
all
thing.
of it.
That's that whole convenience factor.
Yeah, you enjoyed it. Of course, it was way more time than cracking open a can or popping the top off,
Yep. Folks have to figure those things out. I mean, you can't rely on that big machine because it's
I know
it's constantly changing.
There's a couple other points that I kind of wanted to hit on that Luke was kind of rambling there, and he was really getting after it.
Yeah.
He threw a lot at you.
I know. I felt a little like, woo. Yeah. Okay.
It got dark real quick there. But that last one, it opened up with Tim, and he worked in that little Papa John's thing.
Oh, I heard that.
Yeah. Years ago, he interviewed the Papa John's guy before Papa John's got woke and they kicked him out.
Okay.
And they asked him, why does Papa John's pizza taste different? He goes, well, because it's just like the slogan, our ingredients are better. He goes, what are your ingredients? They're the same as everybody else's pizzas. He goes, no, we only use skim milk, tomatoes, shredded,
like
just
fresh
regular
stuff.
cheese. Yeah. And then Tim's like, well, okay, whatever. So him being him, he researched it. And like, for example, Pizza Hut puts Splenda in their dough, in their crust.
Huh.
And then if you look at what Domino's does, there's just a list of all those weird ingredients and names and chemicals that you can't even pronounce.
Yeah.
And that's what he was getting at.
I had Domino's on the list for a sponsor, so we're losing them
Except
now.
for Domino's. They're really good.
But Papa John's didn't?
No, Papa John's was just very basic.
It really was.
Yeah, they had like 6 ingredients. Oh.
Yeah.
And then Luke countered with, and your body can't process that, and it causes inflammation. And this reminded me of another journal I read too much that I just happen to remember, and it was talking about cancer and colds and this and that, and it's pretty much all just inflammation and your body not being able to handle it.
Yes.
And so if you're just eating processed shitty foods, you're going to get inflammation here, there, or wherever in your body, and you better hope that you're eating enough good stuff that your body can handle that.
And you might go to the doctor and they'll probably give you a prescription.
They'll cause more inflammation somewhere else.
Anyways, maybe not, but just saying, yes.
Right. But once again, like this all just works into itself. And if you do one good thing, something good comes from that. But if you start going down the wrong path, relying on the grocery store. Okay, now since you're relying on the grocery store, they're feeding you terrible foods. That's going to cause inflammation. Now you're sick. This all kind of plays into itself.
And a grocery store is like anything else. I mean, you got choices.
Right.
You go in there, there's a lot of good choices.
Sure, of course.
And there's a lot of crap choices.
Yeah.
So, you just kind of figure that out.
And again, who doesn't like some crap food? But I mean...
I do. I
right.
mean, those on an
we're
earlier
not
podcast.
acting like
I
we're
love
all
bologna.
health
salami.
nuts. Yeah, that's true. Ranch. Anyways, but wait, when did this cool website come up, and when did we need to start registering?
I think just a few weeks ago.
So it's super new.
Yeah, super new. And yeah, it's got a couple of its own websites, web pages on the USDA's.gov. Just go ahead to the People's Garden Initiative and just check it out and give the government all your information.
Is there a charge? Is there a fee?
Not yet.
Okay.
No.
So there's not like a stamp like for the deer?
What it really sounds like is in the farming world, and again, a lot of folks listen to this will know, you have the option to report yields every year. So you get like letters, you get postcards, whatever. You have to fill these things out. You send them back in. The USDA collects this data, and then they decide, here's what the average yield is across the U.S. on X crop, on X grain, whatever. And then they kind of use that to predict things. And I think there's a lot of really good data that comes from that. But just like anything else, there's a lot of corruptness that can come from that data you can use for a lot of bad things. So a lot of farmers, that I know very well, either just don't fill those things out or they bullshit them because they're like, they're not going to know what my yield is because that's going to affect the price that they're going to get as an example. Like if there's an overabundance, these kinds of things. So it feels to me like that's been the big thing that's always been going on in food production. And now they're kind of applying that same type of thinking to the homeowner and the small gardens, and trying to collect that data.
Do they really think people are going to register their gardens?
I'm sure people
So
are.
this is a whole nother part of this conversation, which we're gonna run out of time. But to touch on it is so I said in the beginning, to me this topic is personal liberties. What are we required to report on? What are we already reporting on? And so what you just said, do they think people are really going to report this? And how many things are we reporting, are we self-reporting on today because we're afraid that we're going to get in trouble if we don't? It's a lot of things.
For instance, what? Example?
Registering your guns, registering your vehicle.
Yeah, your trucks.
Paying for your license plates.
Okay.
Paying for your
Tax on the barn you just built.
Yes.
Whatever your
property
shed.
tax. Yep.
Yeah.
Did you tell them that you just put that building up because they don't know, but you're required to report it
Okay.
because you owe taxes.
Yeah.
Or you just waiting until they show up and see it. Yeah. I mean, there's 100 of these things that you could actually think about.
We just got popped by our HOA. They're like, I think you might have a leaky water main. We're like, no, we're fine, I think. They're like, well, you just used a bunch of water. Like, well, yeah, we just filled our pool. Oh, you got a pool. We'll just write. She even said that on the phone. Oh, we'll just write that in right here.
Boom.
Oh,
Yep.
God damn it.
See? It's like, this is the thing that we have all become accustomed to because it's just a normal thing.
That's true.
We report all this stuff every single day, every single year. And this is just another one. Where it's like, oh yeah, just report this. It's no big deal. Like, just send it in. It's gonna cost you a little bit of money eventually, but
you're gonna get a sign.
Otherwise, you might get a visit from an authority, and nobody wants that.
What is there gonna be a gardener authority stomping through the
like
grounds?
a home inspector? That might just be something thrown on a home inspector's
code
inspector's plate. Like, be sure to check out their yards and their window seals, see if they have a garden.
Yep.
Check out the lighted areas.
Because they're bypassing sales tax or whatever for this because they're doing this, and we need to figure out how we can collect that.
I think the government, is trying to expand. Like that's its purpose, right? To expand and grow and feed itself. And a quote that I heard from an accountant, and it makes a lot of sense, is like people get so bent out of shape because they have this misconception that money is theirs. Mm-hmm. It's not. They might have earned it or they worked for it and they get awarded it, but that's the government's money, and they're allowing the people to have some of it. Mm-hmm. And that's how I think they view your tomato garden. Those tomatoes are actually the government's, and they're allowing you to have that. That's kind of the dark side, the feeling I get from it, and that's not what you want. It's not what you want to hear. But I kind of get the feeling like that's how they view your garden.
Right. It just seemed a little crazy to me. It just
doesn't it?
Yeah.
It seems crazy, but I think if you step back and you think about all of the other things that we do, like if you really thought about it, you'd be like, man, that's a little crazy too.
Yeah.
True.
Like everything has a purpose. Everything. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things like money needs to go to certain things. Roads need to be paid for. All these kinds of things. We all use it.
Yeah.
But man, some of this stuff, like someone just legally trying to take care of themselves and their family and not stepping on anybody's toes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like, come on, man.
Like why do I got to go down that path? Real early in his rant, there was one point that I kind of skipped over that I wanted to bring up because I just thought it was fascinating. And he was talking about how all these sugary foods and over the top, foods are really unhealthy for our kids. And there's chemicals and all this other stuff in these processed foods that are just proven bad for you. But you're exactly right, Ben. You have your right to choose. You don't have to go to the grocery store and buy sticky buns and Mountain Dew and the new bluish green Mountain Dew. You don't have to do that. But that stuff's really good, and I like it, and I enjoy it. Yep. So I eat a lot of it, and then I get hooked on it, and there's chemicals in that.
Right, that keep you hooked and keep you coming back.
And a lot of those processed foods are illegal in other countries, just straight up not even allowed to sell, not allowed to put on the shelves. And it reminded me of a story that WNBA player, Brittany Griner, who's still in jail over in Russia. And when she got off the plane, they searched her bags. She had vape pens. Mm-hmm. In Russia, those are illegal. Those are considered illegal drugs. And she's like,
they're not here.
Not here.
Oh.
And of course, the rhetoric and the national thing is, see, Russia's bad. Russia's bad. United States, we're free. Freedom. We're the best. Russia's bad. Like that's what we're told, and that's what we're just don't question that. Mm-hmm. And then stupid me, I have the thought process go through, you just kind of fluttered through my head. Okay, I think that also says something that vape pens and that stuff, the government like Russia is like, we're not going to let our people put that stuff in their bodies. That is terrible. That is straight up poisoning them, their heads, their minds, their muscles, everything. But here in the States, every gas station has them. You're cool. Mm-hmm. Like there's
something's
like,
off.
Yeah, like like I want to have the freedom to be able to do vape pens. Don't get me wrong, right? But I think it also says something to where not only are they just legal in every freaking gas station in America, it's just totally cool and part of the fabric. And our big WNBA players think that you should just be able to take them anywhere you want and just have them, and other governments are like, oh, no way would we ever subject our people to something like that.
Yeah.
As tyrannical as bad Russia.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy with the stuff that they are willing to do. And if you compare it, you're like, what?
What is
they can't do this?
Yeah.
So that's where I come from with a lot of this, Ben, is you like to know the why and make sense of it. And I just try and find there's got to be, there's a connection there. And what side are you on? And I feel like there's always a gray area that I kind of fall into. You got to see both sides and what's happening.
That's the thing.
Yeah, and to me, the bottom line is it comes down to money. So there has to be some kind of monetary motivation. Like certainly control. There's definitely control out there, but it's control because you want control to have the money. That's what it always comes back to, because that's they need that.
Certain companies need this money, and if you're growing it, then
you don't think
they're not right. Like
you don't think it's bigger than money. Like I mean, that's what this Luke Rudkowski was getting at. It's bigger than money. This is a globalist agenda trying to control a population, the size of the population, and the population itself. Period.
Yeah, I think like personally, I definitely would have to think more on that. But for me, like my current state of mind is it is all about the money.
Sure.
Because the money is the power.
Yeah.
And who controls that controls everything else.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Who gets what,
whoever's in charge has
yeah.
the most money.
Yeah.
And if it costs X amount of money to live, then
Yeah.
it costs X amount of money to live.
Right. You're just removing it one step.
Yeah.
You know, you're controlling the end means of the dollar bill, not the tomato or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
All right.
yeah.
True.
I don't know. It's crazy, man.
It is. It's a mad world.
Good topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you brought that up when you said you had come across the garden thing, I was like, "What?"
I know.
Man, we've been growing gardens I can't remember when we weren't growing gardens, and they want me to tell them what I'm growing. Like,
yeah. I'll shoot you the link so you can go ahead and.
So we can register.
yeah, we will. Yeah, sure.
All right.
Yep.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Yep.
We'll let 'em
Getting
know.
on it right away.
And I did see your neighbors had a really big garden in their backyard. I'll be sure to stop by their door and make sure that they get a
Dude,
sign.
and that's the thing. It's everybody around here, you know.
You're going to put a flyer in their door? Or
yeah,
what?
here you go. Well, the People's Garden sign.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Okay.
so they'll know where to put them on that map, the website on their map.
When
Right.
those government vehicles start showing up
Oh,
and
shoot.
knocking on doors and
Oh,
like,
no.
"Hey, I just saw something in your backyard there. Let's go check that out."
Yeah. I'll be like, I'm just trying to do my part. Be good.
Stuff is going to change around here. I can guarantee you that.
Oh man.
Jeez.
Yeah.
All right, boys.
Yeah.
Well,
this was
very,
a good one.
Very interesting. Yeah, we got. I mean, there's so many other roads we can go down with this. And I'm
Let us
sure
know
we
what you
will.
think. Like
Yeah.
we've said
Yeah.
the last few.
Yeah.
If you have any
sure.
comments or
Yep. Yep.
I mean, this was kind of set up to stir the pot. If nothing else, make people aware of it.
Mhm.
yes.
You know, and I don't want to, piss people off or make farmers think I'm against them. No, I'm a
No.
farmer myself. I'm from farmers. But there are powers at play here that are, I don't, nefarious. I don't think they
Yeah.
have our best interests at heart.
Yeah.
Agree.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. So check out all the wherever you're listening, whatever the app is.
Yeah. Spotify.
Go in there, do the
Apple.
ratings,
Yeah.
do the reviews.
Anything.
Yeah.
Still, the offer's still on the table. Free T-shirts.
There we go.
Put your review in there. Shoot us an email, ben@farmfocused, FOCUSED.com. Let us know what you think about it and that you did your review. We've already sent out a bunch of them, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's
it
awesome.
is.
Yep.
It's nice to hear from you people out there that there are a few
That
crickets
people are
listening.
Actually, people
I'm
are
kidding.
actually listening to what we're doing.
We have more than a few, but no, yeah, it's good. It's
No,
good.
I would like to say thank you to all of our listeners and followers. It's been awesome, and to hear back from them.
Yeah.
That it's pretty cool that we're able to share some of these topics that I don't think a lot of people are aware of or thought twice about.
Yes.
And some are just funny. It's nice to just get lost and, listen to some old country boys out of Nebraska.
Yeah. Yeah, as always, it's just common folk stuff.
There we go.
Man. Yep. Cool. All right. Well, if you guys don't have anything else, we'll
Sign off.
let Birgit play this one out.
All right.
Later.
Peace.
All right.